This is Mayor Rahm Emanuel with Ashley Weeder from the Joffrey Ballet, and it's in Chicago Stories. And this is the 1-year anniversary of declaring today Ashley Weeder Day, and that it's also the 10-year anniversary of the Joffrey Ballet. Now, if you grew up in a Jewish home, every day would be Ashley Weeder Day. Yeah, that's how a Jewish mother would approach it.
That.
Yeah, I bet you would. But it comes with a lot of misery and pain after that, okay? I just want to be clear. So last night, we opened up Swan Lake.
Yes, we brought back Swan Lake. We had originally done it in 2014, and last night was the revival of it. And I have to say that coming back to such an iconic classical work, seeing the company scale every level of the production, artistically, technically. I'm a very, very proud artistic director today.
Walk me through, you brought back or rewrote the Nutcracker.
We did.
So what made you decide another classical piece to bring back? What was the impetus for Swan Lake, and what was some of the interpretations that you brought to that Swan Lake that are different from 2014, or you wanted to speak or make it more contemporary or make it more accessible? What was the impetus?
I think the thing when because our Swan Lake is also choreographed by Christopher Wilden, and I was at the premiere when it originally premiered, and I always felt that, you know, Christopher has an amazing way of looking at the 19th century classical canon and bringing a very fresh take on it, very relative, I think, for our audiences today. So it isn't your kind of very old-fashioned, run-of-the-mill storyline, but he's taken an idea, and particularly in the case of Swan Lake, Chris was really influenced by the work of Degas, who probably is the most prolific artist who painted backstage at the Paris Opera. And so I think that using Degas and using Toulouse-Lautrec, who was a student of Degas as well, it allowed him to rethink how the story of Swan Lake would come together. And so basically it is a story within a story. It is a rehearsal for a new production of Swan Lake, and the young boy who is playing the role of Siegfried, the prince, is rehearsing the ballet, and then he continues the rehearsal and the idea in his fantasy.
Since those two are also done by Tchaikovsky, does that mean you were bringing back Sleeping Beauty?
Do you know the Joffrey Ballet have never done a Sleeping Beauty?
I knew that. But U.S. history for 200. Okay, I'll take the column with the presidents.
But I would say that I've always wanted to do a Sleeping Beauty.
So is that possible that you would? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm hoping that maybe in 4 years we will do.
Oh, kind of on the presidential season.
Yes.
So you have brought these two back, but you're thinking about, why do you want to do Sleeping Beauty?
Because I think that in the canon of Tchaikovsky and of the great classical ballets, I think that Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty are probably the purest. Sleeping Beauty is the ultimate classical ballet. Whereas Swan Lake is a classical ballet, but it has a very big interpretive element to it. Whereas Sleeping Beauty it's about technique and crystalline attack.
Why do you like working with Chris?
I think
as a choreographer, as a partner in kind of reinterpreting classical pieces, and I can't say I could go on the whole show and talk about Nutcracker. I thought that was off the charts.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
I think all of us at the Joffrey are really proud of what the end result was, and it was a work that was 10 years in the making. When I suggested it to Chris and about the Columbian exhibition, his thing was, "Are you sure, Ash?" And I think the more I sent him about the history of Chicago, the more he read, the more he could see it happening.
What is? Let me ask you. When you have all that you're doing and working on, who are the artists today, your compatriots, or in the past, that you say those are the choreographers I wish I could have been around to dance with?
I think that's an interesting question, actually. I mean, I feel lucky because I've worked with so many people in my career.
Who's a choreographer or a dancer that's been most influential in guiding your career as an artist, as a dancer?
I would say as a dancer, definitely, obviously Rudolf Nureyev, because I was a protege of his. And he gave me the opportunity to dance my first leading roles when I was a really young dancer. But I would say Mark Morris, William Forsythe, as clearly at the top of my list, Kenneth Macmillan.
So you go from Nureyev to Mark Morris. Walk me through this.
Okay, I think that when I came to America and I joined the Joffrey Ballet, and Robert Joffrey was the director, and at that time he was bringing a lot of amazing choreographers. Laura Dean, of course, Twyla Tharp had a presence at the Joffrey, but then I remember he brought Mark Morris in, and Mark was very young at the time. I think working with Mark Morris gave me a whole different kind of way of thinking about moving. And I think his incredible musicality, you know, just having spent years with him, both in New York and then he came to San Francisco Ballet many times.
Do you search first for a piece of music, or do you have the concept of the dance and then go search for the music when you're choreographing?
I think that you find the music.
You find the music,
yes,
and then that's the spark?
I think so. I think the music has to tell you what you want to do or how you react to it or what your response is to it. I have seen it the other way around when someone has an idea, but then it's really, you know, square pin, round hole, and it doesn't necessarily gel completely. I think that the people whose work I really admire, I would say that they have a direct response to the music, and that would be like George Balanchine or Sir Frederick Ashton.
We both were dancers. I want to know why you decided not to seek life in public service. No. So walk people through on the Nutcracker, how that came about and its relationship to the devil in the White City, which I found... I think, to this day, I still think it's one of the most amazing reinterpretations of a classical piece.
I have to say I'm really proud of it too. I had an idea when I moved to Chicago. First of all, I had danced Robert Joffrey's Nutcracker in the very first performance. I had a lead role in that production.
I knew that. I was just giving you a softball.
So I knew, you know, I knew that production. But I also knew that, you know, as time goes on, productions get old, scenery falls apart, costumes are threadbare. So eventually you have to do something. We had to do a new production. And knowing that it was kind of imminent, I thought, well, if we're going to do a new production, we should really think, what does a new Nutcracker look like for the next generation? And Chicago is an amazing city with a fantastic history. And out of that, and reading about the Columbian exhibition, the idea that a child's dream could be going to the Columbian exhibition, the World's Fair, especially it was the White City, and then giving that idea to Chris Wilden. And I think that where it really came together is that Brian Selznick, who is the brilliant children's author, wrote us a libretto for a new Nutcracker set in Chicago, all to do with the White City.
And that became the impetus?
It did.
It's an incredible...
And I think the idea that the Drosselmeyer character in the Nutcracker could be Daniel Burnham.
I never thought of it that way.
Well, that's who our inspiration is.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So when you look today at where dance is, what do you think the community as a whole, not just here in Chicago, but you know the major companies today and the regional companies, what do you think is happening in the dance world? What would you want to emphasize, and what do you think that the dance world has to start to correct?
I think that when I look at dance globally, that we have to maintain an integrity about our work. And I think that sometimes, you know, people are like, well, where's the new work? And we should be, you know, inviting these people to do new work. And I think what it really comes down to is that you need really talented choreographers who really understand the craft that they're working in. And I think that craft is something that I find missing in a lot of work. I think there are an amazing amount of young people out there, incredibly talented people, that should be given the opportunity. But I also feel that we need to kind of honor our heritage but not in such a museum way, but take that heritage and bring it forward and really understand it and really dance it at the highest possible level.
One of the things I've always, going back to when I started dancing, about Robert Joffrey was its versatility of the company dancers, meaning they could do a classical piece, like a Swan Lake. They could do a modern piece, like the Green Table, and that they can move in both worlds in the language of modern dance and classical ballet without any transitional or lost in translation capacity. What do you attribute that to?
I think it's what I
that was just to prove to my mother that my education was worth something. That was all I did.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a throwaway question. That's all you got to do.
I think that to be a dancer is an amazing opportunity, and I don't think we can put ourselves in silos or, well, I'm a classical ballet dancer, I'm a contemporary dancer. I think that we have broken down those barriers. I think we've hybridized our language, and I think that, you know, if you think of last season at the Joffrey Ballet, we presented Alexander Ekman's Midsummer Night's Dream, which was so radically off the wall.
It was beyond radically great.
It was fantastic. Thank you.
I thought that everybody got lured by the name, and they saw something that's not even close.
They did. I think we only had a few complaints saying, well, where is Shakespeare?
Yeah.
We're like, well, he's not here.
He's all the way in the back. Yeah. And that is an incredible piece. And talk about that piece for a second.
So Alexander Ekman, for me, is like he's an incredibly imaginative, fresh voice in dance, and I think that he has a very unique perspective. He has a brilliant way of working, and I think that we're lucky in Chicago and at the Joffrey that we've now worked with him quite a few times. He loves the company, and it comes back to being open about accepting different ideas from different people. And so he took this idea of Midsummer, which is a Swedish idea of celebrating the longest day of the year with festivities and a huge amount of aquavit and beer. And then, of course, if you ever drink too much, I think that you can then not sleep so well and you go into a crazy nightmare. So it was a brilliant work.
No, I mean, it's one of those pieces you walk away like, what made them think of this? And then you say it's the most brilliant thing you've ever seen. Yeah. Now, you have that for 10 years, and there was some relationship with that. You have it here in America, am I right?
We hope to bring it back for sure, because I think that people would love to see it again. I think it would appeal to so many people, and so what we've realized is that if we do something quite radical,
we're giving a real urban setting to this interview. That's all. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that people they hook into the Joffrey and they want to come and see what we're doing, and so I think that if we can reach a younger audience and keep building our audience in Chicago, I think we're doing a good job.
10-year anniversary.
Yes.
What do you want people, if they were to say, Ashley walked in this, and here's where Joffrey is today, how would you write that?
I think that I would want people to know that at every leg of the organization, if I think where the company is today and the rep and the depth and the breadth of the work that we presented on the stage, but I also think that we started an academy in Chicago and since I've been here, and the academy is thriving at every level, and I think that we have been able to offer Chicago and young kids or open classes. It's everything. It's a pre-professional program. It's also open to adult youth, and so it's every kind of dance. And then I think that the other thing that is really important is that our community engagement program, which is headed by Erica Edwards, has made an amazing inroads into Chicago, into the public school system.
We were going to get there.
I'm really proud of everyone. Karen Provost is the director of our school. I think that collectively with Greg Cameron, our brilliant executive director, that we've been able to really be thoughtful about what is our responsibility, what is our mission, and what do we want our legacy to be.
Well, since I'm coming to the end of my tenure, I would say this, and this is what I love about you and Greg and what you've done with Joffrey, is that besides being a dance company homed here, if it's your home, you have a responsibility to its upkeep, and that you are involved in our children's lives, in our school, and in dance. And I think that's, if I can say as a mayor, as behalf of the people of the city of Chicago, this isn't just a place you are housed. You actually are part of the neighborhood and community, and you give back. And I want to thank you on behalf of the kids of the city of Chicago that you guys really have.
Thank you.
What do you think the relationship is between Joffrey, the dance company, and Chicago? And how can that get strengthened?
I think that because we're a leader, we're like the major dance company in Chicago, and I think that we have a responsibility to support all the other dance community in Chicago. I think that we can probably do more and do more things collectively to strengthen that.
I bet you Greg's really breathing a sigh of relief that you said that. That you can do more.
You know, I think we can always do more. And I think that the thing that for people to understand is that, you know, ballet or dance is a beautiful, beautiful art form, but it has so many other disciplines that go with it that are life skills.
Let me ask you, when you meet a young woman or a young man that's thinking of dance, and they're not sure they want to do classical ballet or modern or jazz or any of the pieces, what's your advice to them? And what do you say? And or their advice as a dancer that says, I'm thinking about dance as a life and a career. What is like the standard, not standard, but what is your advice to them in an affirmative way or negative way? Or what do you think of when I was growing up, you couldn't begin, Gus Giordano, he would not let you in to take jazz unless you had X years of classical ballet. Wouldn't let you do it.
Interesting. I mean, I would say that, and we do this on a daily basis. We have lots of young kids that come here to do class and figure out if they like it. And I think the reality for any child or any of us is that we can't be good at everything. And we have to, there comes a kind of a junction when you have to decide, what are you going to do really well? Because if you know what you can do really well, then you can keep pushing forward on that. But the frustration, if you're not going to be a brilliant classical ballet dancer, there are so many other disciplines in dance that you can be the most amazing hip hop dancer.
Do you miss dancing on stage?
My body does not. And I would say my body, unfortunately, has been through a lot. But would I do it all again? I would.
You would do it all again?
I would do it all again.
Would you do anything different?
I don't think so. I feel like incredibly lucky. But I would say that I don't miss dancing today.
You don't?
And I think that seeing the company, seeing them dance and what they take on and how well they succeed and to be there for them, for me, that's the greater reward than I think ever being a dancer.
Next year, lyric opera.
Yep.
Leaving the auditorium, any second doubts? What's your anticipation? What's your hope? And what's your, not fear, but anxiety as about going to lyric opera? And you take any one of those 5 questions I just asked. Go ahead.
Okay. I think it's an amazing opportunity for us. I think that to be a partner, you know, at the Lyric Opera House, I think it will allow us to think bigger on our productions. I think that it gives us an amazing set of amenities backstage. I mean, incredible technical ability, especially with lighting and scenic design. I think it also aligns us with the opera company. It's a beautiful theater. It's in tip-top shape, and I think that, you know, it really is it's a business model, and I think the business model will make sure that the Joffrey can keep moving forward and that we are being fiscally responsible as to how we operate.
I won't be mayor when this happens. I have one request.
I'm sorry about that.
I know, I appreciate that, but I once, before the Art on the Mart, I talked to the Lyric Opera about simulcasting an opera on the wall facing the river.
Fantastic idea.
I would like you, because we remember when we did this with the Paris Opera Ballet at the theater, and we showed it live, free.
In Millennium Park.
In Millennium Park. That there be on the river a Joffrey Ballet, so people kayaking, boats, etc., could watch the ballet simulcast. Okay. And I'll leave that in my note to my successor.
Okay, that would be really...
Flip side, I have other things I need to say, but this one thing I made a pledge for you that you have to fulfill.
Well, we will send you the invitation when it happens, because I know exactly what you mean. Though it is a fantastic opportunity.
It's a great wall.
And there's a huge plaza right across the river.
Yes. Would you do that? Think about doing that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the more we make our art form accessible to everybody, that should be our responsibility.
That's one of the big. I'm glad you brought that up. So how do you help the dance world feel like there's people that go to dance and feel like it's a barrier because unless you're sophisticated, that's not what I saw when I was watching it, and that to me is it's a challenge for any artist. How do you make sure people see what you're trying to tell them to understand and appreciate and walk away with?
Well, I think that we have an amazing marketing team here, and I think that ours is a visual art form, and I think if we can get visibility out there through video, conversation, I think that already we've seen our audience grow just from the ideas of the Nutcracker, like changing the Nutcracker, making it relative to kids today, that they can understand what that performance is about. I think doing things like Midsummer Night's Dream, doing this new idea of Swan Lake,
and don't forget the Sleeping Beauty commitment you made,
Sleeping Beauty
that will be on the will be on the lyric opera wall to the river.
There you go. I think that's the way to do it. We'll make sure we do it in October,
exactly.
So it's warm. Yeah, I think we're doing a pretty good job of reaching people. Of course, we always want to reach more people.
No, I get. Let me ask you this question. We talked about the last 10 years. Right, the next 5 years, what do you want to accomplish? What's the goal for Joffrey Ballet, and what's the relationship with Chicago in that story?
I think the story of the Joffrey in Chicago is that, and it began this year, which I think is fantastic. We were invited to Paris. We went to Paris. The company performed brilliantly. We were really the ambassadors for Chicago. We participated in an all Jerome Robbins celebration festival.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And, it's always good to hear from people that don't see the company. But I think the people in Paris were pretty impressed with us.
So in the next 5 years,
I think that we have very strategic touring. I think that wherever we go, Los Angeles, New York seems to be coming back more and more for us. I think Europe. I think for us to represent Chicago as ambassadors of the arts, I think is important for us. I think that this season we also have a world premiere of Anna Karenina.
Oh, I didn't know. When is that?
In February, and it's not to be missed. So I hope you're in town.
Well, it's February.
Because I think that...
doesn't everybody want to be in Chicago in February?
Yeah, I think it's a great time of year to visit.
Who's a choreographer?
It's Yuri Pozikov. And again, it's one of those projects where it's been 7 years in the making. But I think that from every part of this production, it's a commissioned score by a young Russian composer, Ilya Domunsky.
That rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ilya Domunsky.
Okay.
An amazing artistic team. So I think that we've taken that incredible story of 800 plus pages and we've condensed it into a brilliant 2-hour drama.
Let me pull on something you just said about the artistic team. So you have first the music.
Yes.
Then you have the story.
Yes. Or sometimes it can be libretto music.
Okay. Where does the choreographer fit? Who runs the lighting? When does that come in? When does the costume piece come in? Just to help people understand each of these art forms where and not obviously there's not a sequencing that happens like that neatly. But how does that all get pulled together into a single narrative?
So it just takes...
10 words or less, please.
It takes... Okay, I'll be really brief.
Try not to go on and on, really. I got to get this short here, okay?
But when I asked Yuri to do Karenina, he had ideas, especially for music, and I didn't care for his ideas for music. And then I think
Does he know that?
He does know that.
Okay.
And I think that also, like, you know, how do you find the narrative for a huge story of Anna Karenina? We don't want to tell the story of the book. We want to take something that is extremely important within that book and that be the kind of the center of the drama. So having a great librettist is important. So it was Yuri, the choreographer, the librettist, then came the composer, and then Yuri wanted to use a certain designer. And I said, well, I know someone who I would really love to work with, who I think would be the right person for this project. And I think that it's turned out to be exactly that.
That's why it takes 7 years to pull
I
a
think
piece
so.
from,
I think
from inception all the way?
You just can't, we you know, we don't have millions and millions of dollars. So I think how we use our money is really important. And I think we have to get it right. I mean, I think you said that to Christopher Wilden with the Nutcracker. I think you said to him, you've got one opportunity to get it right.
I think we said something else, but for all the kids in the room, that's exactly how I said it.
I think so.
And if you're not sure that's how I said it, you can ask former Prime Minister Tony Blair. That's exactly how I told him, too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my go-to line, exactly. No, it was a fabulous piece. But sometimes I think this is you kind of lifting the curtain behind the production piece of this is hard for people, and I sometimes wonder if they were better exposed to that production, would they then better not appreciate but understand what that dance is about?
I think so, for sure. And the reason I say that is that with going back to the new Nutcracker, we did an amazing documentary, The Making of an American Nutcracker, which was with PBS.
Yeah, it's always a famous. I get cringe a little because President Obama used to refer to me. That was my nickname.
Really?
Yeah. So that's why I thought you were joking. I thought you knew that story. So let me on this, but don't laugh so hard up there, okay? Give me a break. So the piece here, but the next 5 years, I'd like to also if I could, is continue to. One of the things that I've also talked to Mike Kelly from the parks. You know, we do this night out on the parks.
Yes.
It's free theater, free music, free films all throughout. Is talking about doing it in the winter at some of our classical park facilities, like in Humboldt Park, like in Douglas Park, that are across the city, and bring, again, art that we associate with our cultural institutions downtown into the neighborhoods. And
I think it's important.
Yes, I think to continue to make great art accessible to everybody in the city so they feel ownership to the arts community.
Absolutely.
Is funding getting freed up? It's never enough money, but is funding getting freed up? Are people, families and foundations and companies?
Yes, I think it's been, I think, well, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
I think that the Joffrey has earned the respect of the city
No doubt.
and the people in the city. And I think that when people see something that they see as a very positive impact at every level, in the community, academy, in the company, I think that people are willing to say, I want to support this. I believe in what they're doing. They see the result. And so I'm happy to say I think we have amazing support.
Actually, do you ever go to Jacob's Pillow or any of the other? Yeah, and what do you think of those festivals?
I think they're amazing. I think they're fantastic. Jacob's Pillow is a very, very special place. And for people that don't know Jacob's Pillow, it is up in the Berkshires. It is kind of a retreat for artists. And I think that we have performed there. We've had a very big success there. It's one of the oldest festivals in America for dance.
Have you ever... You know, my daughter's studying architecture. And have you ever thought of, beyond music and beyond, obviously, lighting and stuff, the relationship between dance and architecture, since they're both bit on lines and on space, and the relationship?
Absolutely, and balance.
Is there another art form you would want to have dance kind of interact with them in a more aggressive, more intimate way than just music?
Yes, I think that it would be great to work more with visual artists. I think that we're also expanding, working with different mediums of dance, different mediums of artists that bring something other than what we consider to be ballet.
So this is our rapid round.
Okay.
We're going to see whether the 10 years here in Chicago have... don't worry, it's not that hard. It's a pass-fail, okay?
Okay.
Cubs or Sox?
I don't like to fail.
Then you won't fail. We'll write the answers down for you.
Okay.
Cubs or Sox?
Cubs.
See, that was easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Thick or thin pizza?
Thin.
The lake or the river?
That's interesting. Probably the river.
Okay. Do you want to expound?
Well, I think you've done a brilliant job.
That was why I was just teasing you.
I mean, I think the river walk is such a wonderful achievement for the city.
Since I've gotten a new dance and it's going to be on the wall of the Lyric Opera.
You're doing well today.
Okay, do you think is there anything more I can ask for, like a dance on a barge in front of the Spanish Step piece?
Why not?
Okay, there it is. We got 3 things. Grace, write them down. Hurry up. We're going to call it the Sears or the Hancock, the building.
They should,
pick one.
Hancock.
Okay. I don't know. This is really not fair to you, but I'm going to do it anyway. The 16-inch softball or 12-inch softball. I have a feeling like you don't play softball. So just go with 16 inches. It's a Chicago sport.
16.
That was so good. You went 5 for 5. I'm so proud of you.
Okay. Fantastic.
That's right. Thank you. This has been Ashley Weeder on Ashley Weeder Day. We're so proud. And I'm on a serious note. I remember when Joffrey faced challenges in New York, came to Chicago, and your star has been brighter, and the city's star has been brighter because you're here.
Thank you so much. I feel incredibly honored to be a citizen of this city.
We're proud that you call Chicago now home.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, this equal admiration has to end at some point here. Okay.
Well, thank you. I just want to say on behalf of all of us at the Joffrey Ballet, and I think in the arts community, that you have been such a champion for us.
Well, thanks.
And I think that you have pushed us to do more in the community, to look at dance as an education. So I think that I can say on behalf of all of us at the Joffrey, we're very, very grateful to you for all your support and for your inspiration.
Thank you, Ashley. This is Rahm Emanuel from Chicago Stories.